don't know what exactly you'd like me to say. I mean, this is a standard 3-bed apartment. You're very close to Dublin Airport, so the majority of the units in this area would be rented out. I would say probably 70% would be rented. You'd have a complete mix of people here. You'd have a lot of foreign nationals who would be working in the airport. So it would be transit. They'd probably only stay a year. Then moving on, you'd have a lot of, say, staff from Ryanair, Aer Lingus, that kind of thing would be here. You would probably, putting this up for rent, it would be gone within 2 days. To be honest. Yeah, I mean, if I put an ad up in the morning, you'd probably have 50 emails by.
And that's because you have a housing shortage, right?
Yes, yeah, and location. So close to the airport. Even during the times when it was a bit quieter, this would always be a very popular area because you've got 2 main links into the city centre on the Ballymun Road here. On this side, you have 2 entrances, an entrance exit here, and you've got the old airport road here bringing to the city as well. So you'd be into the city in 15 minutes, 20 minutes.
What would be the average income? Because that's like to compare it to
the average rent.
No, the average income. Like for those who work at Ryanair, what would they make?
Oh, they wouldn't be highly paid. You know, they might be on, I don't know, early 20s per annum. You know, but you would find there would be 3 people. You would usually have 3 air hostesses or 3 ground crew. You know, friends like that. It would be more so 3 professionals than families that would be renting here.
Okay. So it's impossible almost for one person to rent one apartment.
It can be very difficult to show unless you're earning. Yeah, I mean, better money if you're going to pay €1,600 for a 3-bed. But I mean, a 1-bedroom in here would be €1,000, possibly 1,100 a month. So you would have maybe a couple.
So you will be working and living. That's it.
Working to pay your rent. Yeah. That's why you would have a lot of like families, as in brothers and sisters, will live together. Like again, a lot of say foreign nationals that would be here. They would be here maybe with a man and his wife and his brother and his wife. So there's 4 people. So it makes it affordable. And ideally, they wouldn't want to be living like that, but to be able to afford the rent and have a life as well. That they find that's what's happening, you know. And it's pushing. The rents are really pushing your normal family out of the market, where it's one breadwinner, like maybe the husband, and the wife is maybe at home with the children. Very difficult now for one wage to pay.
Move out to the country, or is it cheap
That's
there,
it.
or?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. The further away from the city, obviously, and then on the outskirts of Dublin would be a lot cheaper. Like say in Drogheda, which would be only 20 minutes, 30 minutes up the road on the M1, you would get a 3-bedroom house. I have one there, and it's €800 a month. It's a semi-detached house with a garden and a driveway, a traditional type of home, and the rents would be much cheaper.
Did you have here or in England like regulated rents for like years and years?
No. They're only beginning to regulate it more so now because of the extreme increase in rents. That, as I was saying, they've now brought in only every 2 years you can increase the rent. And they brought that backdated so that if they brought this in December, but even if you were already living in a property, maybe for 6 months or whatever, they still can't increase it until you're 2 years from your initial starting point.
You don't have anything like social housing or something like that?
There
Projects?
is social housing, there's rent allowance, there's different schemes that the government has, depending on if people are working or they have children and the father is not around, or different situations. So there is different, but it's proving very difficult for people on rent allowance to get properties, because the landlords are more interested in having, 3 professionals, or and not having to fill out all the different paperwork and everything that goes with rent allowance. You can't refuse rent allowance. You have to give everyone. You can't, but it just proves more difficult for them. I have properties with people on rent allowance, and there's no issue with them whatsoever. It's just there's a lot more paperwork and everything to do. So some landlords don't want. It's easier to go, and it's a landlord's market at the moment. That's the thing.
About the social housing, it's still private people that rent to the social housing, but they have a part of the income from the community and part from the people.
Exactly.
So the community don't own apartments.
No. The government. The government sold off a lot of the properties that were initially council estates that they built maybe in the 50s and 60s and 70s. And they ended up during the boom time selling off a lot of that property. So now they have a shortage. So now they're trying to buy back property again. And now they're looking at a new development in Ringsend on the south side of the city, where they're looking to build 3,000 social and affordable homes. homes
And
because of the crisis.
So if the landlord here, or their owner,
Mhm.
the same thing, I guess.
Yes, yeah.
If he wants to sell this apartment, what
Yeah.
would it sell for?
3-bedroom here, I just sold a 2-bedroom for 195,000. So 3-bedroom here now is probably around 220, I would say. 3-bed here.
So what's the fee? Do you as a landlord pay a fee?
They would
to
pay a
like
management fee.
community?
Yes, it would all depend. The management fees are different for each apartment in that if you may be on the 3rd floor, you're using the lift, so your fees are higher.
Yeah.
They calculate it, they have their own way of doing it, you know. So I think the management fee for this one I think is 1,300 per annum, but they can change.
What's
obviously.
per annum?
Per year.
Per year.
Per year,
Okay.
sorry.
Annual.
But they can change each year,
Okay.
and you generally find they only change in one direction, you know.
Yeah.
So what you would be a big thing with your management fees, your garbage, your trash, your bins would be included. Any complex with electric gates, which we have here because it's underground ground car parks, so you're higher because the gates electric, they can
Yeah.
break down. Your lifts, your electric doors, fobs, shoes doors, all of that. Then you would go into your sinking fund as well, you know, your insurance fund in case there's a big job that needs to be done, like there's a problem with the roof or whatever, so the sinking fund is there, plus block insurance. And
So what's the general interest in a bank here in Ireland? If you borrow money, I guess.
Well, it depends on the banks. I mean,
Yeah.
I think KBC are doing the most competitive rates at the moment, but 3-4%, you know.
So 8,000 a year.
Yeah, I mean, what's come in now as well for
So
first time
you
buyers.
earn a lot of money to be renting. To buy, even
buy-
if you borrow all the money, you will earn a lot of money to be renting your apartment.
Yeah, for any cash buyers at the moment that are buying a property for something like this, you've got really good yields. Like there would be landlords in here getting maybe 10% yield, as opposed to leaving their money in the bank and getting nothing for it.
Yeah,
You know, so a lot of investors. I've sold apartments in the city centre recently of the investors that are buying them because I've got tenants in there and the tenant just stays there and they get a good return. But
Better in
the
the
ba-
bank.
exactly, and you know the banks have changed now. You need to have 20% of your deposit.
Yeah, right, we got the
market
same.
was overheating, beginning to overheat
Yeah.
again, so they had to the central bank had to step in and do this. There was a lot of criticism at the time, but it slowed it right down, and it needed to slow
It's
down.
15 at home.
You know what the Celtic Tiger was in the boom days in Ireland? It destroyed Ireland. You know, so they didn't want that to happen again. Property prices dropped by 50% on houses, 70% on apartments. So a lot of people are in negative equity now. So you have a lot of landlords who never wanted to be landlords. So a young couple would have bought, you know, their 1-bedroom apartment, hoping to get their foot on the property ladder and make maybe 20 or 30,000. And then they have their deposit to move to their 2-bedroom or their family home. Now they bought for 200,000, that property's worth 100,000. But now they have 2 children, so they can't live in a 1-bedroom apartment, so they have to rent it and go and rent it themselves. So they're accidental landlords. So you have a lot of that now. So the market has come back, not to anywhere near it was, but in that 10 years that we've had since the crash in like 2006, 2007, the market has come back, so people are not as much in negative equity because they would have paid off 10 years of their mortgage, and it's come slightly back up, so it's not as bad. But a lot of people are in a lot of trouble.
And the people who earn the money.
Yeah.
I have another question. If you rent this apartment for a year, but after 2 months you regret it and you have to move, you still have to pay the rent, or what?
Well, the strict rule of the law is yes, that you've signed a contract for the year, like a mobile phone contract, like anything that you sign. But you generally find what the landlord will do is keep the deposit. It's a kind of a grey area. You find they can keep the deposit or work out some sort of a deal. The tenant could sublet it for that time, but the landlord will have to be happy with the tenants that you're getting. But generally, they will possibly hold the deposit because of the cost. They now have to re-let it, so they got to pay an agent.
And
They have to re-register.
how much do they pay in deposit?
1 month's rent. Now that can change. Some landlords might say, I want a month and a half, or you know, you have a dog, I want 2 months rent in case there's damage from the dog. So it's all up to the landlord and the potential tenant to agree or disagree on the terms on that, you know.
You said 2 years the rent increases.
Yes. Yeah.
Who would negotiate the rent?
Well, it depends. It could be myself as an agent dealing with the landlord, or dealing with the tenants and dealing with the landlord, or if the landlord is managing the property themselves.
The government.
No. But if this rent is increasing to 1,800 per month, you're going to have to be able to show, well, what other apartments are renting for that. That's what they're bringing in now.
Is there any percentage, a standard percentage for
No,
increase?
no. I mean, this is 1,600 in 2 years' time. When I go to review the rent, 5 apartments across the road might be renting for €2,000 a month. And say, well, look, that's what the market rent is now. You know, now the landlord might decide not to increase the rent. They say we're very good tenants. We're happy with them. Good tenant is worth money in your pocket every month.
It's flexible.
So yeah, all depends on the landlord. Like anything, you have a good estate agent, you have a bad estate agent, you have a good landlord, you have a bad landlord, good tenant, bad tenant. So
basically, it's the market who decides.
exactly, exactly.
But the roof to higher the rent is depend on how much. Everything else have just similar properties,
Exactly.
not the whole countries.
No. Similar property in similar area.
Okay.
You know. Yeah.
Som gör det. Ja, börjar vi bli klara? Börjar vi gå tillbaka till busshållplatsen?
En intressant fråga är väl egentligen också då ni frågar om vad hyran och de betalar vi ganska mycket pengar för, men vad är deras disponibla inkomst?
Ja, men det var ju det vi sa. Alltså,
ja, men efter skatt och... Sa han det eller?
What's the time? We're talking about wages. The average wage is like the early 20s?
No, I mean...
A year?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say 40s, you know, would be industrial wage. You know.
Is it per household or per person?
Per person.
Per person, yeah.
40,000 euros a year?
Yeah. I mean, it depends on what, you know, people working in the airport for the aerostess or whatever, I don't know if they're making early 20s or whatever, it depends on your job.
So how much tax do you pay here?
It would all depend on what level of your wage your earnings are as well, to what you could be 51%.
Yeah.
I'm not sure the exact where they change, you know.
And the lowest, like the student?
They would be on, I think it's pretty much zero. I mean, if they're below a certain amount, it's, yeah. But I'm not an expert on that tax.
This size of apartment, how many tenants you guys allowed to rent?
Well, again, it all depends on the landlord, you know, but I have 3 people moving in here. You might have 3 couples say want to rent it, and I'd say no, it's too many people for the apartment. So
you have to know.
yeah, it's up to yourself and what I would be advising the landlord, or what the landlord decides themselves. They might say we don't want children, you know, as in because we just paint, we don't want the marks all over the walls.
There's no rooms in there?
There's not really, like, it's kind of, is it suitable? Like, sometimes you might have an apartment that's like, just not suitable for children. There's nowhere to play, there's nowhere, the balcony is too dangerous.
Right. I have a question. Can they decide everything? Like, can the landlord say that I don't want any Muslims here?
No,
that's discrimination, right?
Absolutely.
You have discrimination all about that.
Yeah.
Right.
No, it's not like they say, it's just that the apartment might be suitable for children. You know, you might say, well, it's just too dangerous, there's too much traffic there, there's too much...
But if you get children on the way, you don't.
Yeah.
You can still.
We can't stop people having sex. Draw the line there.
Okay, good.
Right.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
No problem.
Thank you.
Thank you. Nice meeting you.
Nice to meet you.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Very interesting. Thank you.